Welcome to Demond Does the Six Questions, where the same six questions can tell a unique story. I am your host, Demond, father of two, husband of one, and leader of this here Demodcast. And my guest today has a master's degree in English from the University of Nebraska at Omaha. She is a member of the Women's Fiction Association, and when she isn't writing or reading, she sews. Her story, Doggone Ghost, is in the horror anthology Exhumed. Please help me welcome Bernie Brown.
I'm not sure I really deserve that. Wonderful welcome. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Hello, it is nice to meet you as well. I believe everybody deserves that type of introduction at least once.
Okay. I got mine then.
Yay! I think everybody has a unique story to tell. Like if you talk to somebody long enough, I'm of the belief if you talk to somebody long enough, they're going to tell you something that you are that's absolutely going to shock you because we all live in stereotypes. That's one of the reasons I even started this show. God's honest truth.
Okay. I'll try to shock you.
Surprise, shock, awe, usually one of those things.
I'm afraid I'm not. I'm pretty mild. I'm not really the shocking type, but I'll do my best.
Everybody says that, and then they say something, and I go, "Oh, that's really cool." So,
okay.
I will be the judge of that, ma'am. No.
All right. Okay.
I don't think people. I just don't believe. I believe that people don't give themselves enough credit. That's kind of my take on it. So before we get into the six questions, I did mention that you sew. What kind of things do you sew? Like what sewing creation are you the most proud of?
Yeah, it's my masterpiece practically. I have two granddaughters, ages 3 and 6. When the first one was born, when she was about 2 or 3, I started this house. You take a card table. And then you create a fabric house that goes down over the table. And therefore, it's sort of like a little hut, but it's all cloth. Frankly, it took me a couple of years to finish because I just kept getting ideas. And it's got flowers and butterflies and bees and doors and windows, curtains, a bird's nest on the roof and a chimney. Recycling, garbage. It's got the whole thing. And I really had a lot of fun with it. And like I said, I just couldn't stop. It became an obsession. So I finally got it done by the time a second child had been born. So that's my masterpiece. It's called The Cozy Cottage.
The Cozy Cottage. Is there any way you could send a picture of that to me after we're done? Because I'd love to see that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have many. And inside I embroidery Made for Helen and Hope by Gigi Whitlock. So that's around the baseboard.
Right on. That's really cool.
Okay. So I guess that's the most interesting thing about me.
How long have you been sewing?
Oh, gosh. I really did start when I was about 3, or at least I tried.
Oh, wow.
I had some really horrible failures, but that's how I learned. My mother was an excellent seamstress. And, I just hung around her a lot. And now I know that I have made my granddaughters very aware of fabric and color, design, creating. I get constant orders from Helen. I've made a mermaid costumes for them, rock star costumes, matching baby doll pajamas. If I'm boring you, just tell me to be quiet. On the works right now they're called fancy skirts. Stuff like that. I sew for myself too, but Helen doesn't give me a lot of breaks.
When will your granddaughters be starting with you?
Well, actually, Helen is 6, and I've talked to her about it, and she's afraid of needles. So I'm just not going to force it on her. If she wants to learn, I'll be glad to help her learn. But she's got to come to it on her own.
Are you ready to answer the 6 questions?
I am. I'm ready to go.
Question number 1. When did you know you wanted to be a writer?
I actually started writing fiction when I was 50. I am now 72. And I had majored in English, and that was literary criticism that I wrote. So I was always a big reader, but I never really thought about writing fiction. But then as the older I got, a story formed in my head that I had actually experienced as a child. And I just thought, someday I'm going to write that down. And I finally did when I was 50. And I entered it in a local small newspaper contest. And it, lo and behold, it won like honorable mention or something. So it didn't get published, but I did read it at Barnes and Noble. And, that's all it took, man. The bug had bitten me. And so I just started making small goals for myself, like when I'm going to get one thing published before I die. Well, it took 3 years for that to happen, and I wasn't dead. So then I said, well, if I can get 5 short stories published, I'm going to write a novel. And I did get 5 short stories published. And I started a novel, which was horrible because I wasn't involved in any writer groups or anything like I am now. And so I was just going it alone. I bought writing novels for dummies. I wrote really quite terrible novel. I mean, there was no overriding character arc or big plot. So, but I learned from it. I finished it. I wrote a novel. And then I knew even less about submitting it for publication. But I tried and got absolutely no response.
So you were 60 when you got started, when the bug finally bit you. On that first novel, did you ever revise and edit that and then submit it, or whatever happened to that one?
Well, it went in a drawer. But I did steal from it for my novel that did get published last year in October. I stole some characters. I made minor characters main characters. I got rid of the main characters I had. I kept the setting. I streamlined the whole idea of what it was about. It became a novel of mother-daughter conflict. It's set in 1960 in Iowa, in a small town, because that's my era. I grew up on a farm in Iowa.
What's the name of that novel?
I never told.
I never told.
I never told you. That's the name of the book. Yeah. I wasn't actually saying I never told you. I never told you is the title. And it's about a mother and a daughter who keep secrets from one another. And once they discover them, it nearly destroys their relationship. And so it's a story of, can they mature and get beyond this bitterness that the discovery of these secrets have caused them. There was another novel in there which was an improvement on that first one, but not good enough. At least I got some rejections. Nobody even bothered to reject the first one. And in between those two, I wrote the first draft of a completely different kind of book, which I just set aside. I don't know why. I guess because I got interested in the second Iowa novel. Now I've gone back to that, and that's my work in progress now. Would you like to know what that's about?
Yes, I would.
It's supposed to be light, fluffy, nothing serious. It's about really my husband and myself, loosely disguised. We have traveled a lot in Europe, and it's about some adventures and misadventures that they have in 4 different countries: Germany, Mainz, Germany, Florence, Italy, St. Ives in Cornwall in England, and then the Channel Islands. We've been to all of these places, but the things that actually happened to us in the novel didn't really happen to us. And we really didn't make fools of ourselves in the way that these 2 characters do in front of the locals. That's what this book is about, and it's called Every Delay is a Gift. Because while we were traveling, we tried to keep that philosophy in mind, because, when you travel, things do go wrong. And you just have to find out what that, side trip gave you. Like, there might have been a gift involved in the fact that you got a layover in London.
Sounds like a lot of misadventures that everybody can relate to.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Question number 2.
Okay.
What do you wish you had known when you had started out?
I wish I had known that when you choose people to work with your writing, because all writers have a critique group, you need to be careful about who you choose to work with, because some people will critique your work just to actually show off what they know, not really with your work in mind, and that's soul crushing. So I found the perfect. There were people I trusted. I knew when they gave me criticism, it was with my own best interest in mind. So I learned to be very careful about the people that you let read your work. You need to trust them before it's published. I also wish I'd known that in the end, no matter how much good advice you get from wonderful writers, make it your story and do what in your heart you want to do with that story. Those are the things I wish I had known, but I do know now. And not to compare myself to other writers, because there's always going to be somebody better. There's something in the writer world called the imposter syndrome. Most writers, no matter how successful they are, feel like they're fraud. And so you have to constantly fight against that. Okay, we had this interview set up. I thought, I'm just faking it. Why did this guy want to interview me anyway? That always goes through my head. And I think other writers said, and you just have to push it away and value your expertise, whatever height it has reached.
The imposter syndrome. If it makes you feel any better, the imposter syndrome shows up on this side of the phone too, because there have been some interviews.
I suppose both people,
Yeah.
unless you're a narcissist, most people experience that.
Yeah. Question number 3. What's your go-to order at your favorite hometown restaurant?
All right, I'm going to give you 2 answers because, like I said, my husband and I grew up in Iowa, but we have lived in Raleigh, North Carolina for 35 years. So I'm going to talk about 2 hometowns. Our favorite restaurant here in Raleigh is just down the street. It's a neighborhood pub called the Northridge Pub. And my favorite order there is fish on greens. And you pick your favorite salad. They have several salads. I always choose the strawberry salad. And then whatever fish of the day, is a special that day, salmon, tuna. Unless it's something I really, really dislike, I'll and get that on top of the salad. So that's my Raleigh favorite. And in Exira, my strange name of my Iowa hometown, it is a sin not to order the tenderloin sandwich. And the tenderloin is hangs out 3 inches all the way around your bun. It's deep fried. It's, Iowa pork. It's wonderful. If I had answered anything else to that, Iowa would disown me. So tenderloin sandwich in Iowa, fish on greens here in North Carolina.
Question number 4. What are you curious about?
Well, this one, you're going to be sorry you asked because there's an endless list. First, I'll tell you what I'm not curious about, and I'm a little bit ashamed of. I'm not very curious about science. I'm kind of ashamed of that because our daughter teaches chemistry. And I just tell her, maybe if you had taught me chemistry, I would have enjoyed it more. I'm just not very curious about what molecules and things of that nature. I'm not very curious about bugs, stones, minerals. But what I am curious about is history, especially everything having to do with the first half of the 20th century in the United States and Europe. in so many ways, women came into their own in World War II and were not recognized for it. And now their stories are coming out. I just cannot get enough of them. The women flew planes. They decoded German code and Japanese code. Donut dollies, I don't know if you've heard of them, but they weren't as frivolous as it sounds. They got up on the front lines with these very difficult, messy machines that made donuts just to raise the morale of the soldiers. And sometimes they ended up in the fray and helped an injured soldier get rescued. Women like that coming into their own, whose stories are coming out now, that I'm just very curious about that. And it's good that there is an endless supply of those books now. I'm also extremely interested in immigrants because my grandparents immigrated from Denmark. And in my hometown, it's mostly all the towns around there are, for the most part, the people are of Danish heritage. And there is a major Danish American museum close to where I grew up. And I'm proud to say that my relatives have contributed quite a bit to that museum in terms of leadership and funds and memorabilia. We never go to Iowa, but what we go to see what exhibits are on at the Danish Museum, because there's a long history of good relations between our country and Denmark. And also the stories of these immigrants, how truly brave they were. Like my grandmother, she came to America and she never went back. She never saw her mother again. And how do you make that decision? I'm curious about history, especially the first half of the 20th century. I'm curious about World War II, the Jews' stories of escaping and finding refuge in, well, not just America, but different countries around the world.
What has been your favorite book that you've read about this time period recently?
Oh, that's so hard to say. There's been so many. I think my overriding favorite was actually a nonfiction called The Code Girls. And it was about how these girls were, and then of course they were called girls. Everybody was called girls then. If you were between 20 and 30, you were still a girl. How these girls were chosen was from every walk of life, demographic of wealth. They just had to take the test. And you could do that at your local post office. The test was like things like pattern recognition, being good at crosswords. It was a very unusual test that proved ability to decode. And then these women went to D.C. There were like 50 different establishments where they lived. They put up these quickly built dorms with all these women crowded in. And of course, their work was entirely secret. They couldn't even talk about it with each other outside of work. And it had to remain secret until this day. A lot of it has not been revealed because, that would just let the rest of the world know too much about our ability to decode. And so their stories, I think, were the most fascinating. Some of them went to the South Pacific, and they were recognized within the military. They were given credit for what they did, which was really remarkable. But the public didn't know what they did because they just didn't want to. The military just didn't reveal those kinds of things. So that really was my favorite book.
Question number 5. Is there anything I should have asked but didn't?
Well, I told you about the what I'm working on now. My next project in line is a character that was cut from my novel that got published. I did have 4 main characters. A very successful writer here in town did critique it for me, and she said, this fellow Butch, he's a delightful character. He deserves a book of his own, but he really does not impact the conflict, and I think she cut him. So I did. But I'm going to write Butch's story. I kept all the information that I cut out of the book. So after I finish this book, Butch is next in line. After that, I want to take a road trip in Iowa because there is an awful lot there that I didn't know or appreciate when I grew up there, and now it's coming to light. So I want to take a road trip around Iowa to visit all the places that I haven't been and write another book like this book I'm writing about Europe, only write this one about Iowa. And then after that, if and when that gets published, I would like to devote myself entirely to ghost stories.
To what?
To ghost stories.
Oh, okay. Speaking of ghost stories,
Yeah,
thank you for the segue.
I read ghost stories now, but I never used to. And when I first had my first several published, I still didn't read them. But it just, I don't know. It just sort of, I tried to write a mystery, and a mystery you have to unravel it logically. But a ghost story, you don't have to explain it. You don't have to have its own logic, interior logic. But so I guess that's why ghost stories came more easily for me than mysteries. I'm trying to find a contact in a film school who needs a project, because I think this story, The Doggone Ghost, would make a very good short film. And I wouldn't ask any money for it. I just want a little bit of credit.
Speaking of Doggone Ghost, could you tell us more about that story and like the elevator pitch, I guess, and also tell us more about Exhumed, the horror anthology that you're going to be a part of?
To start with, an anthology was published in October called Halloween Party 2019 by Devil's Party Press. And I had 3 stories in that anthology. And then Devil's Party Press created a new imprint called Gravelight Press. And Exhumed, this anthology, is like a best of from the previous anthology, 13 stories. And it's Gravelight Press's first production. Diane Pierce. The story itself is about, it's set in a department store, in the men's department. And it is about the rather fussy little man, his name is Marvin Truelove, who is the head of the men's suits. Extremely particular, perfectionistic about how he keeps the department clean, orderly. Well, there's one mannequin that somehow repeatedly gets dressed inappropriately overnight, like it's beautiful, Calvin Klein suit or whatever disappears, and it is wearing something totally inappropriate when Marvin comes to work the next morning. And there's no explanation for that. And it's the unraveling of who has been doing that and why. That is how the story ends, and I'm going to tell you that. But Marvin does not allow himself to swear any more severely than doggone it, doggone it. They've done it again to that mannequin. So, is that enough?
Hence the title. Okay, yeah, you've given me just enough to be super interested. Question number 6. It's the last one. The coup de grace, the finale, the end.
Okay. I hope it's worthy.
I'm sure it will be. If you could create a new holiday, what would it commemorate?
It would be Friends Day, because I have been so overwhelmingly blessed with wonderful friends, loyal friends, fun, intelligent. I don't know why I got so lucky. My life is just so rich because of those people. Well, not only them, but my husband's wonderful too. But of course, I guess he's my friend.
So how would you celebrate it? So you said gifts.
Party.
A party. Okay.
Gotta have a party. That's what we're missing anyway. This group of writers at the Triangle that we've become very close over the last, 10 years. And we get together regularly. They're at each other's book launches or just at each other's houses, sometimes with our partners and spouses, sometimes just girls' night. Yeah, we would have a party. And we would eat and we would drink wine.
That
And
sounds like a blast. Let me know when you set up Friends Day because I want to hear all about it. Send me pictures.
Okay.
Send me pictures, send me video, send me audio, send all it to me. Friends Day sounds fun.
Well, no, what happens at the writing party stays at the writer parties. I can't send you audio.
Fair enough.
Sometimes we talk about our husbands.
It's kind of like Vegas with those kind of parties. I get
Yeah,
that.
a little like that.
I get that. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Sure. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I hope that I didn't say too much because I kept hearing myself saying And I will send you the pictures of the cozy cottage.
Yay! Thank you, dear listener, and remember to please subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. It helps more people see the show and join the conversation. Next week, we talk Buckaroo Banzai, love, and the Herculoids with the most unique name in all of fiction, Zigzag Claiborne. So until next time, see it, hear it, speak it,